So the aftermath of it, beginning to connect, and what happens in the neighborhood? How does it start kind of coming alive again?
Well, I think as people have described it, it's like Armageddon. You all just suddenly doorways start opening. The actual roadway was a river. Our yard was a river because it's a cascading yard. It looked like a waterfall.
Wow.
And so we all just walked outside in complete shock, just looking around at each other and surveying the damage up and down the road. Our road was completely cut off. I could see within my eyesight at least 3 very large trees that had actually come across the roadway. So we were cut off. There was no electricity.
It's amazing that more people weren't seriously injured. And incredible when you think about it. And what about the emergency response? As that started to come through, what was the...
It was, we had no phone. No electricity. Not even of course, I was concerned for my husband. He was out in the car in this, and I did not actually get mobile contact with him for probably, and it was then SMS for at least an hour or so after the storm. So neither of us knew if either of us were okay. So that was a concern. But it seemed like almost instantaneously there was some sort of help. I mean, neighbours helping neighbours. You could hear chainsaws start up, people asking, if everything's okay. And
that's so great, isn't it?
It was amazing. And
it's communities that's going to get us through this stuff
straight away, and everyone. Not that I know of any elderly people in our street, but we all sort of just accounted for each other, just by seeing people in the street, which was really good.
That's nice.
It took my husband maybe 4 or 5 hours to get home, and so, but in that time, he had actually come from the tip in Capera. He'd managed to drop off the load that he was taking there and coming back. So I think he was caught around about Settlement Road, and I don't know how many trees were down across Settlement Road, but there were numerous across Waterworks and our little section of the gap. And for him to get home, all those trees would have had to been cleared, and they would have been cleared by volunteers, council, SES. Phenomenal. And albeit mainly what they did was just saw it off the end and drag them to the side of the road, so it still looked like a war zone, but it allowed access through. So I was so relieved to see him coming up the road, and it wouldn't have been there had we not had that. I wasn't capable of removing trees, and a lot of people in our street, if you've got little kids, you're not sort of leaving them. It's a bit hard. So it was the people that were capable of doing that, and it was the emergency services.
That's so cool. And I mean, the hard thing about this is, if you believe, if you accept the science and the indications that a warming atmosphere is shifting the patterns of weather, so that it's looking like we're already tracking an increase in intensity and frequency of these kinds of storms. And how do we begin to think about preparing communities so that something that seems like such a wild one-off thing you wouldn't dream of, you can actually think about being more prepared and skilled to be able to help in the aftermath if this happens more often?
It's a hard one, because I was one of those people who would, was prepared not to think about it. But now I've been through something that was quite significant and seen, and we got off lightly when I think about what other people went through and are still going through. I just take it for granted, We've got all these experts telling us that there is climate change coming and it's going to affect the weather, but you can see it now in the pattern of weather, the ferocity of the storms, even from since I was a little girl. They're more intense. They seem to come in pattern almost. I must admit I was scared the following days when they predicted the more storms. I thought, we can't. The ground's soaked. A little bit of wind. We can't take much more of this, and that was just one big storm, not over a period of time. So I was naive, and I think it's very hard to, unless somebody's been through something like this, to tell the people that haven't been touched how much it can affect their lives.
Thinking about the kind of cause and effect that we're dealing with here, how do you think about communities that are seriously rebuilding? You guys were blessed in a way, but can we start thinking about rebuilding with more green technologies to try to cut this down in the future?
I ideal situation that would be if everyone had the opportunity to do that with their homes. And I think, with the initiatives that the state government and groups such as Green Cross are actually doing with getting, replacing shower heads to conserve water and energy efficient lighting, there's small steps that it is going to add up. It's going to make changes. And I think every one of us, whether we want to or not, we will start moving that way in our life. We have to start moving that way in our life, and people should realise that every little thing they do does add up. That it's not, they don't have to, and they're not going to change the world by themselves. But if every one of us do a little something, it really does add up and make a big difference. And if I had the opportunity to rebuild a house or a home, I would certainly be looking at energy efficient means, more affordability, long term,
Yeah, absolutely.
long term for us, and hopefully for my son and the future generations.
Not to mention the puppies.
And the chooks.
Yeah, the chooks.
And I don't want to see Antarctica disappear and these little penguins not have ice floes to stand on. So, and I know I can't change it myself, but there's little things I can do, and I try to do to help.
That's great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.